Hello, everyone. Welcome in. This is the Her Hoop Stats podcast. It is Tuesday, December 16th. I'm Jamie Steyer Johnson alongside today Tyler DeLuca. And folks, we are in kind of that in-between point in the season where we get some really good matchups. We get some kind of layoffs where you have breaks for, things like, I don't know, finals, since these are, in fact, student athletes.
Sure, I guess.
Right.
You're gonna cut off my basketball, I guess. Makes sense. Uh-huh.
And in all of that, we're also gearing up for conference play. And so we're a little all over the place as far as games go, as far as teams go. And so with that, we're going to bounce around a little bit today. But we've got to lead off with, as always, we got to hit when we're boots on the ground. We got to get the real story. We got to get behind the curtain. And so for you, Tyler, we're going to hit Bedlam. Man, looked like a heck of an environment. I love doing it at a neutral site back to back with the men. I think that is very cool. I just liked the organization of it a lot. It seemed like there was a good amount of, first of all, people in the building, obviously, but also just the intensity definitely felt ratcheted up from giving them kind of that warm up where you're going to be in it for the men's game. It was a solid game. And now you're just rolling right into two of the highest powered offenses in the country.
Yeah.
And our Her Hoop Stats ratings predicted this, had the point spread under 1 point. That looked pretty good in the first half. Second half, Oklahoma took over. What'd you see?
Well, frankly, and this is something that JC was talking about, the Oklahoma State head coach was talking about in the post game. Oklahoma State just came out kind of flat in the second half, like just to kind of put it plainly, like it didn't seem much deeper than that. They just kind of came off flat, and like they were starting to turn the ball over a bit more, things of that nature, and Oklahoma, who frankly kind of had their own struggles offensively in the first half, like enough to keep up. It was, a very tight game. Like I think Oklahoma was up by 2 at the half, and it didn't seem like the intensity carried over through halftime in the way where especially in like that first quarter, like these teams were just going back and forth, like both in like their pros, but also like when they were kind of slipping up, and it was like it just felt like possession for possession they were matching each other. So like if it was a missed shot, it was a missed shot. If it was a make, it was a make, and it just felt like they were going back and forth, and it was very exciting. Like the first half, I was having a blast watching this game just because it was so back and forth. But ultimately, Oklahoma State came out, and it just felt like Oklahoma punched first, and they never really punched back for the rest of that second half. The third quarter really made the difference in this game, and Oklahoma across the board kind of just got rolling. Aaliyah Chavez got rolling a bit more, things of that nature, and ultimately were able to pull away. But like that first half was incredibly tight, and it just didn't stick around for the full 40.
And, I thought that was exactly like you said, kind of the key there, where it's not like both teams were playing at their peak for the entirety of the game by any means, but Oklahoma did come out and struggled in some uncharacteristic ways in the beginning of the game and really throughout the entirety of the first half. I think specifically to some of the attempts at fast breaks and just throwing the ball out of bounds. On the one hand, you are not wanting to make those live ball turnovers. And so pretty much any coach is going to say, if you're going to miss a pass, you miss it long.
Sure.
But it wasn't really close long. It was just excited long. And so as soon as they settled that down, it seemed like the switch just flipped and Oklahoma State did not really have a good counter for that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, there was 2. I think it was Aaliyah Chavez had a turnover, and then a play or 2 after Peyton Verhulst had the exact same type of long pass that you're describing, and that's just an important part of, even if it's not fully getting the fast break, like just getting down the court and even if it's not the immediate person receiving the pass, it's the next pass. That's the shot, for Oklahoma or things of that nature, where it's just, you're not letting the defense get set up at all. And there was a couple where, even when those were happening, Jenny Baranczyk is still encouraging those passes. Like that is what Oklahoma basketball is, So it's like, it's not like they're saying, oh, don't pass that. They just were oddly inaccurate at times. And as you mentioned, like very inaccurate. Like when they missed, they missed those passes. And I was like, oh Lord, this, it felt like I don't know if it was nerves because like again, like they settled in so well, and like I didn't feel like I didn't feel nerves like outside of those plays, but like those that's what it felt like. Was like it felt like they were trying to do too much at once almost, and like it was the impact of nerves, but I don't feel like that was like really there like across the entire game. But like that's how I would best describe those passes. It felt like they were nervous passes that like there was maybe like a beat of hesitation for, and it was just enough to like throw off the rhythm of it all, and it ended up in some bad misses on that court. But yeah, I mean, to me, I think when I'm looking at like the beginning of the game for Oklahoma, I completely agree in that with the turnovers, just not being able to kind of get the rhythm going in that way. But one thing I was happy to see was just Reagan Beers getting involved immediately, because that's been something that Jenny Baranchek, I forget what game it was after. It was one of the games, one of the home games. It might have been the NC State game where she's just like, yeah, sometimes we have to remember we just have Reagan Beers, and they don't.
Yeah.
I was like, "That's a good idea. That's a great idea." And I think like the first 2 possessions, they just dump it over
Yep.
top to Reagan. And I'm like, Look at this! Like what an idea that could be so simple because Oklahoma State just doesn't have the body to go in and match up with Reagan Beer. So what do? They start packing the paint like crazy, and that's who my personal favorite player from this game really stepped up to me, Sahara Williams, who has just continued to grow every single year. The offensive growth especially has been phenomenal. She's always kind of been the defensive Swiss Army knife for Oklahoma, guarding the best player period almost every night. Whether it's a big, unless it's just like a like really sizable 5, she's probably guarding the best player, no matter what position that they're playing in. We saw I've seen her against Camille Pierre this season. I've seen her against the best guards. Against NC State, she guarded literally everybody. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And there's a very wide range of players on NC State this year. But 18 points, 7 assists for her. And it felt like once they kind of started forcing Oklahoma to make a decision about how they were going to, if they were going to get the ball into Reagan, it felt like she, out of everybody, was making the best decision. Whether it was pulling up for that mid range, whether it was trying to get that pass in, whatever it was, she was doing it. And I was just so incredibly impressed with like not only like the fluidity, like physically, that her offensive game has grown with, but also just the mental side of it and the decision making that was happening as well. And that's all while guarding Staley Hurd and holding her to a quiet game. Like that's just what Sahara Williams does for this team. She's not the most heralded name by any means, but I continue just to think like if Oklahoma's going to like really go and make some noise in the postseason, whether that be in the SEC or nationally, like Sahara Williams having games like this where she's both successful on both ends of the floor to this degree feels so incredibly important. So that was my biggest takeaway from this game for Oklahoma was that Sahara Williams continues to do these things. Like these aren't new things necessarily, but it's all like truly kind of coming together in these games like this.
And obviously, as someone who has been very familiar with Sahara Williams for a long time, watched her in state tournaments before she left the state of Iowa, because yes, another Iowan, folks.
Another one.
It's definitely really impressive just to see the way that she has developed, as you talk about. She's been a great defensive player. I think the biggest struggle for her going into college was that she was a little bit undersized for the position that she played as far as translating from high school to college. She primarily played the 4 in high school, and she just doesn't quite have the size to do that consistently, especially in the SEC. Yeah. And so, that's also someone who offense wasn't and isn't the primary part of her game. Right. And so just to have that patience to figure that out, but to keep putting in really great effort in some of the other things on the defensive end. And as you said, her passing and just the decision making has been, just a huge leap forward this year. Prior to this year, she didn't have a game with 7 assists. She had one with 8 earlier this season, but that's very close to her career high. And you do it against, solid defense, but against someone who, as you said, is kind of the center of your offense or should be, because I have some of the same, I think, thoughts sometimes with Oklahoma. Where
you one of the big to get the ball more?
No, I know.
Chance, Jamie, no chance.
I know. It's out of character, but I'm standing strong in my convictions on this one. But no, that's the thing is especially the mobility that Reagan Beers has, like the fact that you don't have to pick between playing fast or playing through your big. Like you can do both. And so you frankly have to.
It's so crazy thinking about, like, Oregon State Reagan Beers. Like, and, like, how different of a player like, there's so many of the things that she was good at Oregon State are still here,
Mhm,
but, like, completely different, like, body type, completely different style, can shoot the 3 now, can shoot the
mhm,
mid-range, like, just you wanna talk about player growth, I mean, goodness gracious. Like, everything has just completely shifted. Because I mean, you can't really find more different styles than what she was playing at Oregon State versus what Oklahoma is playing in terms of the pace, in terms of almost kind of not freestyling by any means, but like like the freedom to kind of go and make the plays that you want to make and allowing to have like that read and react almost to a degree. Whereas Oregon State was just very much like set based. I
mhm.
mean, Reagan Beers has transitioned. I mean, we saw this last year as well, so it's not new, but like just continuing to show the versatility even more this season. And I mean, again, it makes sense to play through Reagan Beers and starting there. And it's easy to when you have the offensive firepower you have on the perimeter with Verhulst, Chavez, Zayavan as well, who's been really, really good over the course of this
Mhm,
season. I understand falling in love with that, and especially given like what past years have looked like for Oklahoma, just in general since Jenny Baranchek arrived, 5 years ago now. Like I understand why you can fall in love with that, and there's going to be nights where that is how you win games, just based on the offensive firepower you have. But to me, you got to start with Reagan every
mhm.
time, and then you go from there and you adjust accordingly. Is what I am hoping to see kind of going forward for Oklahoma.
And I definitely am excited just to see once we get into conference play for the
Hmm.
SEC because I mean, frankly, the only real competition that Reagan Bears has seen on the inside this season is Lauren Betts, and they
Yeah,
kind of nullified each other
yeah.
in a lot of ways. And so you need to start seeing more of that high level competition. I do think that there is at times a tendency for Reagan to get a little bit handsy,
Mm.
a little bit
Hmm.
overly
Hmm. Hmm.
physical, and so I think that against some more competitive matchups
Sure.
that can be an issue. It also can be a really big strength where
Hmm.
she can match that level of physicality if that's what she's getting thrown
Sure.
at her. And so we can't really tell exactly what that's going to look like when it's consequential until we
Hmm.
see it. And so that's
Yeah.
going to be probably the biggest question for me for Oklahoma going into that conference play because beyond that like I feel like they have solid depth. I feel like they have decent rotations so
Mhm.
far. It's not like they have to run their starters into the ground. They have
Right.
players that they feel pretty comfortable riding with.
Mhm.
But again, when you have some of the graduation that they've had over the past few years, like yeah, you're gonna have to figure some things out, but they certainly have
Yeah.
figured a lot of that out. We'll get back to Oklahoma State here maybe in a few minutes, but for them, you brought up the name that I for sure was wanting more of, which was
Mhm.
Staley Hurd.
Yeah.
It's been a little bit of a slow start to the season
Mhm.
for her, and I think part of that is having a little bit more offensive firepower,
Sure.
and so you're still figuring out those rotations as well. But if they're gonna get something going, if they're gonna do what they're capable of doing in Big 12 play, they're gonna need to get her, I think, a little bit more settled.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I agree that it's also kinda hard to pinpoint exactly the why behind it. Like, I
Mhm,
think the easiest thing to look at is just the amount of talent that they were able to add and, like, also, like, what they already had in place just growing, but also what they were able to bring in from, like, the portal and whatnot. But yeah, I to me, like, Taylor Hurd still is, like, the player I want leading this team, and, like,
mhm.
and the one that is kinda setting the tone for this team and being able to maybe not being a number one option every single night, but like in a kind of a similar way and to how I was saying I want to start with Reagan and go from there. In my head, in a lot of ways, that's kind of what I want to be with Staley Hurd because
Mhm.
she can do anything on the
She can
court
play any
for you.
position.
Yeah, 100%. So it's I think that can kind of be a blessing and a curse sometimes, where it's like obviously it's fantastic to have versatility, but also like if you're kind of good at everything, where are you pinpointing to be great at tonight? And I think that maybe that's also been a little bit of it, where it's just like you're kind of being asked to do different things, and it might be different things based on the night, and figuring out exactly what that looks like. But yeah, I mean, her being just looking at like the points per game here, she's seventh on Oklahoma State. I think it's not. It's sixth or seventh. Oh God, don't do it. But like, I majored in words, man. I wasn't counting. And and that's just not, frankly, what I wanted to see from Steyer Hurd. Like at this point, like I have so much like admiration for how good I think she is and how underrated she's been over the course of her college career. And so I definitely think there's been a bit of an adjustment period just with adding more talent. And I hope by like once you kind of get into like the real like meat of Big 12 conference play and those big games, like you kind of start to see some of these kind of gaudy box scores that we've grown accustomed to with Steyer Hurd. And I hope that kind of comes back and she's able to, again, I don't know if it's exactly just adding more talent. It's again kind of hard to pinpoint just because there is a lot of mouths to feed right now, and Oklahoma State hasn't played the best competition either. So like there's been blowouts at times where it's like maybe she get more minutes during some games if it was closer, things of that nature. So I'm not like pulling a fire alarm or anything yet, but it certainly is something that like I'm keeping an eye on for Oklahoma State because I think that she has to be one of, if not their best players, to go and be truly competitive at the top of the Big 12.
The last point I'm going to make so that I don't miss saying this on a show, Jaden Wooten giving a little bit of Courtney Williams this season. And I love it. At mid-range.
I'm with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. No notes. I'm with that. I like it.
All right. So moving on. We're doing something a little bit different. As we said, there's been a little bit of a drop in our total games to watch, and that's valid. Certainly should be able to reserve some brain capacity for finals. Certainly need to reserve some brain capacity for finals.
I will be reserving some for sleep. So
I'm happy for you. I'm halfway through grading my finals, so we're
Godspeed.
We're on the home stretch. But I noticed this kind of trend. So obviously last week, Cyhawk, we both had some pretty fun rivalry games last week, right?
I love Cyhawk so much.
I love that you love it, and we haven't even recorded together for a hot second, so it's not like me getting in your ear too much. That's just natural respect there. But
fantastic.
What I noticed after the game was a lot of chatter online about one specific player from Iowa State that doesn't generally get mentioned a whole lot. And that's Ariana Jackson. And this is a game where she did not score a point.
Yeah.
And I saw several long conversations talking about her impact on the game because coming out into the second half, she was switched on to Chit Chat, right? And she kind of changed the entire pace of the game, the entire complexion of the game. And that's something that at Iowa State, like, that's not new. That's something that we've been seeing for a hot second. And to see other people recognize that was really special, really well deserved. And I started noticing from, okay, who's talking about this? Like, where is this coming from? It was a lot of people from a particular fan base. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, I feel like there's certain fan bases where they gravitate towards a type of player, maybe a specific player archetype. And it got me kind of thinking about that because the fan base that I saw giving Ariana Jackson the most credit, also one of the most like vocally just across the board, like engaged in women's basketball as a whole. So that impacts it as well. But South Carolina fans love Ariana Jackson. And that makes complete sense. Like you want to talk about a player that's a two-way to maybe more on the defensive end type of player, a guard that probably isn't stuffing the stat sheet, but has like the intangibles, like does what needs to be done. That's a South Carolina type player. And
sounds like you're describing Raven Johnson right now.
Exactly. Exactly. 100%. And so I was like, oh yeah, that really makes sense. And so I got thinking about like what that means for some other fan bases. And so I've got some, Tyler.
I'm completely in the dark right now. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to freestyle.
So obviously, like based off of that game, I first am thinking like Iowa State. For Iowa State, there's nothing that they will respect more than a pure shooter.
Yeah,
Like
100%.
you think about the history of Iowa State, because for anyone who hasn't been around prior to the past 2 to 3 years, this is not the this
No,
ain't like your
no.
this ain't even like not your mom's Iowa State. Like this is not your older siblings Iowa State.
Mm-mm.
Like they like run
Even
and
just in
gun
my time covering
shooting
women's
players.
basketball, this is not the same Iowa State by any
This
means.
look, it's something.
Yeah,
It's a case study for sure. But a pure shooter, like I think about like last year, I felt like Madison Connor from TCU.
sure.
Like she's someone who I felt flied really far under the radar and flew really far under the radar. My God, how
You
am I
got it.
supposed to grade if that's what I'm throwing out there? But she
Nicely. Grade nicely.
it's facts. Getting a lot of good grades. Not having to fill out any like failing forms, that's for sure. But like I felt like that was someone who, when Iowa State would see them, of course, only saw her
Yeah.
the one time because. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
That's something that I feel like Iowa State really respects, and then Iowa, if there's something that they're gonna really enjoy, to me, and again, this also is like fans that follow a particular team but are fans of women's basketball,
Sure.
because people that are just fans of one particular team
Mhm.
at the sake of everything else, like at the expense of everything else, then tend to not like what other people are good
Sure.
at those things.
Yeah, their
We're
archetype
talking
is the player on the team right now. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
We're talking like real hoops fans. Iowa fans, I think, have really, really learned to appreciate greatness. Like they will see a dominant player and like they will give them props.
Yeah.
And so that's something I really noticed like with this matchup in particular. And I always just think that that's kind of interesting to see how those discussions
Yeah.
develop. How about you?
Well, Iowa's a fun one. It's like if you're
Yeah.
thinking like player archetype, like in terms of like who's been on the roster,
Hmm.
it's very different between like almost what era they're in. Because like
Exactly.
we obviously had
That's why I had
Caitlin's
to go
era.
general.
Yeah, like Caitlin's era, like but I think you kind of have a mix of the eras here on this team. Like to me,
Mhm,
Caitlin's era, it's like, man, chit chat on that on those Caitlin teams would have been a blast. And
mhm,
like figuring out how she would fit in there. And like so like those type of like high power offensive guards, and like we're gonna offense you to death. Like we might not be like the best defensive players, but goodness, we are going to shoot and we are going to score. But also, if you go before Caitlin, this was a big run Iowa team. Meg
right.
Gustafson was dominating in that Iowa yellow. Welcome in Ava Hayden. So it's like
Yeah.
you kind of have like a little bit of mix here, like currently on this Iowa team. And I think if you were like looking nationally about like who would fit the Iowa archetype, like
Mhm,
it's a little bit different now because I think you can kind of go with either of like
mhm,
those two eras because you kind of have both. And I think that's the best way for Iowa to build going forward, frankly,
mhm,
is having like that mix of both. And now like they're very defensive heavy. Like I think like that's the foundation of Iowa is their
mhm.
defense way more than it was ever like with the offense in the
That's
Caitlin
that's
era.
a that's a Jan thing for sure.
Oh, 100% a Jan thing. And so like right now, and I think you can probably say this about a lot of teams, like the first step is defense. And for most of the players that would if you were coming into Iowa,
Mhm.
depending on unless they were feeling like a specific need, which I think they've had to do at the guard spot a little bit. But I think a lot of it is now foundationally defensive.
And that's
Yeah,
a really good point too, because I feel like that also kind of shows you, okay, is this like a more recent Iowa fan? Which is again, not to like discount it. Like whenever you come to the game, that's
sure,
great. But
100%.
like, I think that that's one of the hallmarks of you've been following Iowa women's basketball for more than 4 or 5 years. Is
Hmm.
if you're someone who really likes good post play,
Yeah,
because obviously Monica Sedano more recently, and then
yeah.
going back to Megan Gustafson, like and even prior to that, like they've always been a really
Mhm,
strong
mhm.
post program, and
Yeah,
that's part of how you get really good guards is
100%.
guards want to play with good post players,
Sure.
and so you have that kind of versatility. And so I think of like the versatile kind of post players like a Reagan Beers who has added to like
Yeah.
stretching the floor some in her game. I think about like Lauren Betts who is a really good passer,
Mhm.
and obviously I'm not even getting into Audie because there's complexity there. Okay, that I ain't gonna get into.
You can't even fathom the thought of her playing for Iowa.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like it's not even about like who would play there, but
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
talking about like, okay, if you're gonna be talking just general women's
Sure.
basketball, if that's who you're repping, but you're talking about, oh, I like this player on another team,
Mhm,
like
mhm.
yeah, that's the kind of player that you're going to enjoy.
Sure.
And the state of Iowa is an interesting one for women's
I
basketball
and
discourse.
I adore it. I'm not gonna lie, I adore it. I there was a lot of good ethical hating going on for
I
Cyhawk, and
adore it when it's
I
not in my mentions.
fair. That's real. That's someone who gets their mentions blown up a lot from all different fan bases. That's real. That's very, very real. But I still love it. I
Yeah,
still adore
no,
it.
it's a good time. It's a good
Mhm.
time. The other one that I kind of thought about was
Yeah.
LSU, and I
Mm.
feel like for LSU, and this one's difficult too because this type of player is generally very polarizing, where like it's hard to really win people over sometimes
Sure.
being this kind of player. But a true blue like LSU fan, if they're being like 100% real with themselves
Mhm.
because what they love on their own team, they love someone with some style. Like they love
But the
someone that's
first word
got
that
the
came into
flair.
mind when you said LSU was just Showtime.
Yes,
Like, it's just Showtime.
100%. Like you look, there's gonna be some times where you're gonna rip your hair out.
Mhm.
And if they're doing it against you,
Oh, you'd hate it.
you
That's
hate it.
they fully have, like, mastered the, "I would hate to play against this player, but I love having them on my team." Like, that type of player,
100%.
and, like, now I mean, and frankly, that's a very LSU thing across all sports, frankly.
Right?
That's not, like, a
It's like
women's basketball
a
specific thing.
athletics culture.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
that is, like, what they've always kinda been, and, like, I think it's fun, I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
And then you add Kim Mulkey into that mix, and
Right.
who is certainly not afraid to not be Showtime, or, like, not be the center of it, you know, like, she's comfortable in with the attention,
Yeah.
I mean, you saw her in that Duke game. She was right behind Shea that entire time, and I loved it. I thought it was awesome, you know, like, that's the type of stuff, I mean, you look up and down this roster, and it's like, I don't know if there's a player on this LSU roster that's like wouldn't talk their talk. And like I think that that's like important because like I do think to a degree it's important for I think the best teams in the best ways kind of mimic their coach. And
Mhm.
like and they can find that balance of like this character of like who our coach is the character of our team. And I think when you can find that at the best balance, because there is a balance with that, and you have to have the right coach also to do that. That's why the same coaches win a lot. Like I think LSU has kind of mastered that balance in a lot of ways behind Kim Mulkey, and Showtime is absolutely the word that I think of when it comes to like the players that you want. I mean, even if you go back to some of the past seasons, like obviously Angel wasn't Angel that we know now then,
Mhm.
but in terms of the trash talk and who she was like personality wise, that's been Angel. Haley
Mhm.
Van Lith came in. That's been Haley Van. You know, like those type of players
Mhm.
like have been doing that. Whether they were on that platform or not yet, is a different question. But in terms of the personality and like the edge that they were bringing to the court in the best ways, if they're on your team, that's been there for pretty much every player that they've been able to bring in.
Yeah, and I feel like especially you look at, I mean, obviously Malaysia Fulwiley is now at LSU.
Yeah.
She's someone that, if the phrasing, if the approach was maybe not something that I agreed with, she's someone that a lot of LSU fans had strong opinions on
Hmm.
in her favor, generally
Hmm.
speaking. Do I think that Don Staley was trying to actively sabotage her? No, but that's not something I'm wading into.
Uh-huh.
It was in her favor. They tended to like her style, and so that's just kind of the type of player that I feel like we've seen LSU really embrace both
Hmm.
on their team, and then if there's an LSU fan sitting there watching a game and someone's whipping up behind the back pass, like
Hmm.
that's what's gonna get them up out their seats.
Hmm.
And so that it's definitely interesting because there's some schools I feel like that kind of have the ebbs and flows of like they get what they get,
Hmm.
and or they really learn to adapt to what they
Hmm.
have. But there's also ones that just have this really strong identity, and obviously it's like a combination of the two.
Sure.
You can't just have like an identity that you hang on to at expense of all else.
Yeah.
But there's some ones that hit a little stronger, and
Hmm.
especially the ones with a very large, very tapped in women's basketball fan base.
Hmm.
It is interesting when you start paying attention to where the conversations are coming from. And it's like, oh, yeah, no, this is like a very predictable pattern
Hmm.
at this point.
Hmm. Trying to think, who's the most like Showtime player that's not on LSU? Is it Killing It Miller?
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
Kilmy? Okay, that's like we just
I'm
obviously
glad
just saw
you
against
pulled
South
that because
Carolina.
I
Like,
had it written down and I hadn't gotten there yet. But yeah,
yeah,
100%.
it's okay. So that's Kiyomi's immediately the player. Like as we were talking, I was kind of rattling the Rolodex, and I'm like, especially like more like realistic, like non like star players. So I think like a Hannah Hidalgo would fit really well there, but I don't think she's going to
Yeah.
LSU. You know, like I don't see that exactly happening. But
Yes.
like Kiyomi, I think is like probably the most realistic option. Like it
Yeah.
might be a bit redundant, but like in terms of
Yeah.
in terms of it actually real life happening. But
Right.
like I think Kiyomi's probably that player right now.
Like realistic as far as like could you go there? Yes. And then as far
Mhm,
as like, okay, who are these LSU fans gonna be tapped into? Like you said, Hannah Hidalgo,
mhm,
Olivia Miles,
mhm.
Michaela Blakes.
Yeah. Oh, I like that one. Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like those are the type of players that we see just really hitting those points. And
Mhm.
so now I'm definitely paying a lot more attention because fortunately we have so much more conversation about women's basketball as a
Yeah.
whole. And so it's definitely been kind of fun just to start kind of figuring out where those threads are coming from.
Mhm.
And as someone who also is like just a weirdo about like research and like
Sure.
patterns and stuff, I like
Mhm,
I
mhm,
love that.
mhm.
I live for it. So I definitely am interested to see what else we find over the course of the season because I
Yeah.
know there's going to be more that are going to pop up, and I'll be like,
100%.
you like
Mhm,
that
mhm,
fan
mhm.
base. That's your player. That's your type of player. Okay, I get it now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, it's great. I mean, the fact we can even do this, sign of the growth. So I
Mhm.
love it just for that reason alone, if nothing else.
We're gonna wrap here on a little bit of conference discussion.
Okay.
So we're gonna hit some Big 12 here, as we've been pretty efficient, I think, with our time thus far.
Not too
Suppose
shabby.
I suppose when you talk about one game and then one kind of creative topic, we'll
Sure.
say, sure, you should
It'll
be able to
help.
do that in a half hour, but our track record is what it is. So
Yeah,
we'll take the wins where you get them.
yeah.
So you mentioned just some questions,
Mhm,
just maybe a lot of things to be looking out for here as
mhm.
conference season starts, specifically in the Big 12, which
Yeah.
I am in full agreement with.
Mhm,
I think we've seen some good. I think we've seen some bad,
mhm.
and I think there's some teams we just haven't seen much from.
Sure.
And so I'll let you kind of roll with this one because
Okay.
obviously my thoughts
I got you. I
are
got you.
what they are on the Big 12,
Yeah.
but I'd like to hear what you think.
Well, I'm just I guess I don't know exactly where I'm at, frankly, and that's part of the problem because I was hoping to be, I guess, to a degree, a little bit more solidified at this point. Um, Oklahoma State, we talked about them. Like, obviously, Oklahoma's a good team, and like losing to them isn't like catastrophic. You know, like you weren't favored to go and win. You know, but like I think that second half, I was like, oh,
Mhm.
that's not ideal. You know, in terms of like projecting ahead. Um, TCU still don't like. I mean, they got their good win against NC State. That was a good win, 100%. They haven't stumbled. There's something to say for that. But also, I don't know anything about you. Like, I don't know what type of team you are. Like still fully yet. And so like there's the question marks there. Frankly, when I look at teams that like I feel good about, like right now, where I'm like, wow, I'm looking at you. Okay, I've been impressed by what you guys have done. Iowa State comes to mind. Because again, I'd voted them lower than I wanted to. I forget exactly if it was 3 or 4, frankly, but it was lower than I wanted to in the Big 12 preseason poll. Because in my head, I'm like, this team is good. Like this team, like on paper, like this, they should be good. And I was just scarred from last season, if I'm being completely honest. And I didn't know exactly what it was gonna look like. And so like I'm now like, okay, I'm back on board, 100%. Let's ride. Like let's Iowa State like full Big 12 contender. Like let's go. You know, I'm back in on that. Outside of that, at the top, I don't like again, TCU hasn't done anything wrong. They just haven't done anything that's like, oh, okay, let's like TCU, I'm moved by this just because of the schedule. So it's like they haven't done anything wrong to like be out of that for me. It's just that Iowa State, I think, has done things to actually like lift up their stock for me, whereas TCU has kind of stayed relatively the same. Baylor, I don't. I'm even before Talia Scott went down, which if you've been a long time listener here, you know the stocks I got in Talia Scott. I mean, I am a fan as fan gets when it comes to Talia. So I hope that it's nothing but good news there. But even if you look at that first half, it wasn't great against Texas. And Texas is very good. And so like there's worse teams to go be bad against. But I feel like there's like a level of like, I don't know if it's energy or what it is. There's just something that's been missing from Baylor. And it stems, I think, more than just this year, frankly. And I was kind of hoping to see a statement. And obviously, Duke at the beginning of the season, we now know the hindsight of that is tough on Baylor. Like, if we're just being honest, like that felt like a good win to start the season. Little did we know what was going down in Duke at Duke, and so like that game hasn't aged as well as you would hope it would. And so now it's like I don't know what to do with Baylor because like again, like you have good players, like they're like this isn't a bad team on paper, like your roster. I just don't know what to do with them or what to expect from them, and that is not where I wanted to be, frankly, at this point in the season with Baylor going into conference play. And then I think outside of Iowa State, in terms of teams I've been impressed by, again, not maybe the hardest schedule, but Arizona State being undefeated. That's anytime it's a first year coach, pretty much at any school. If you're undefeated going into conference play, that is a major plus. Like you are actively winning ball games, and Molly Miller is doing that at Arizona State. That matters. I think more than any team in the Big 12, Texas Tech has impressed me. Multiple Power 4 wins. Had transfers go out where I was like, I'm not feeling good, frankly, about Texas Tech. Like I did not. If I hand up, I was not feeling good about Texas Tech with the players they had leaving. They've shut me up, 12-0. I mean, like we'll see what that ends up kind of fully translating to when it comes to Big 12 play. But they've done exactly what you're supposed to do. And if you had, I would have never have thought, frankly, they would be undefeated right now. And they haven't played like the toughest schedule, but just other Power 4 opponents, some solid mid-majors at times. Like, it's just not what I anticipated from Texas Tech in the best way for Texas Tech. And the rest of Big 12, I'm kind of just, I don't really still know what to do with you yet. West Virginia, like, you could be good, but I don't know yet. Like, I still, there's things I like about Kansas, right? But I still don't, like, there's still things I don't really know yet. But then you have random games like Kansas State beating Ole Miss, and I'm like, I really don't know what to do with this conference. So I, for all in all, in conclusion, I don't know what's going on in the Big 12, and that's not a good thing for the Big 12. I feel like to me, like there should have been, I think, at the top at least. I was hoping to feel a bit more confident in some of these teams, and some of it's not it's the fault of the schedule, like a TCU. Some of it's the fault of the team, like a Baylor. And I don't really know exactly where we go from here with the Big 12, and that's exciting on one hand, but also for some of these teams in terms of like the national landscape of things. I think I'm feeling a little bit less excited about maybe where I was preseason for some of these teams.
And part of it too for me is like I have been a long time advocate and critic of the way that team schedule period, but especially in the Big 12, just because of some of the perception of the league. Now, fortunately, as far as things go this year, you probably have a leg up on the ACC as far as perception is concerned, or at the very least,
it's
you
equal
should be looked at on equal footing.
Yeah.
My own personal take on it is I think that the Big 12 has proved a little bit more, but also whatever. Like at the very least, you aren't like the distant fourth of the quote unquote Power 4. I think that this year some of it was unavoidable. Like at a certain point, you are trying to put together a schedule that isn't going to kill you, but is going to challenge you in some ways. For Iowa State, this is the worst down year for combined Drake and UNI in recent memory. Yeah. And those are generally very, very difficult games. Yeah, you're banking on those being games, tough. Yeah. Regardless, and that's something where nationally they usually aren't recognized as such, but you know that those are going to be like knockdown, grind out. And so that's tough. And then you have Indiana in a rough spot.
Rebuild.
And going to be in a rough first spot. Yeah, recently announced that they're losing what was a starter in Kadletova to going back home to play pro. Like rough. Not very ideal. Rough. Marquette is solid.
Yeah.
And I think that that's just again one of those things where you get these teams that are outside of the quote unquote power conference. And so unless they give UConn a better game than people anticipate, like they probably are going to just keep flying under the radar.
Mhm.
But that is a very solid team. But beyond that, some of the games that you thought would be more challenging
Sure.
just weren't up to
Yeah.
par there. And for TCU, like the change in the perception of that win at NC State in
Mhm.
retrospect definitely is impactful. For Baylor, the way that Duke has struggled
Mhm.
since then is impactful. And so I think that for the first time in a while, it's not so much for me an issue of completely like negligent
Yeah,
scheduling
I think that's totally
by
fair. Yeah.
teams. It's just the kind of way that things go. However, I do think that with the fact that there are several teams that have gotten decent wins at the very
Mhm.
least and are coming in really strong, I do think that some teams will start to separate themselves. Like
Yeah.
right off the bat, we have games that are going to really give us a better idea
Yeah,
of
for sure.
who these teams are. Like TCU plays Kansas State, who, to your point, what do you do with them? Like
Yeah.
they take down a ranked Ole
No
Miss, they do all the other things they've been doing. Like I just
Mhm.
don't, I can't figure them
Yeah.
out.
And there's a couple teams like that. I feel like in the
Yeah,
Big 12 where it's like someone's gonna
exactly.
slip up. Like I don't
Yeah.
know who against who. There's gonna be slip ups, I feel like, in the Big 12 this year. Maybe a little bit more than like last year where it felt like the big teams were kind of beating up on each other to a degree.
Hmm.
I guess if you told me there was a couple more slip ups this year, like against lower ranked teams in the conference, I would not be surprised in comparison to last year.
And at the same time, like I think that the separation between like the top of the
Mhm.
league and the bottom of the league is really stark. And
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
think that there will be some of that competition between like the high and maybe mid tiers of the
Mhm.
conference, but I think that there will be a decent separation from those that have struggled coming into
Mhm.
conference play. And so it'll be more about, okay, does any one team separate themselves from the rest of the
Sure.
pack? Or is it like you have 4 or 5 teams at the
Yeah.
top that have all lost to each other and we don't
Mhm.
have balanced schedules anymore and, blah, blah, blah. And so I think a lot of it will be just how those games go
Yeah.
and kind of the order of them as well. Like if
Yeah.
you get a loss immediately to start conference play, that's going to be in the back of people's minds, but
Sure.
also there's recency bias where if you finish really strong, that's going to be a positive as well. So for some of these teams that haven't seen a whole lot of challenge yet,
Mhm.
I'm very intrigued as to what we're going to get from them going into conference play. Like I think that TCU and Kansas State is going to be really important. And then I think that Baylor and Texas Tech playing right away
Mhm.
is perhaps one of the best matchups we could have gotten to start figuring out
That's a
some
great point.
of
Yeah.
what
Both those
these
teams.
teams are going
Mhm.
to look like down the stretch.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I definitely think we're gonna end up with tiers in the Big 12.
Mhm.
Like pretty strong tiers. Like I said, I for me it was like the top 4 going into the season of Baylor, TCU, Iowa State, and Oklahoma State, not in any order, but like just that those 4 teams were like, okay, one of you 4 is winning the Big 12 this year,
Mhm.
more than likely, you know. But then again, you have Arizona State, Texas Tech that have had really strong starts to the season, where it's like depending on how this stuff goes, like if one of those teams like at this rate, I mean, just at the rate that they're winning at right now, obviously, and we'll then that's all what we have to figure out when we get to conference play. But I'm interested in like kind of what that middle tier looks like and how that splits up. Like if it's just like
Mhm.
one really large middle tier, if we kind of have like almost in between the top 4 and like the middle, and there's maybe like 2 or 3 teams where it's like, okay, you guys are good teams, but like
Mhm.
you're not at the very, you're not in contention. But like you guys are good. Like
Mhm.
I'm very interested in how
Like you
this kind of
can
tiers
take
out.
down one of those top teams. You're just not
100%.
getting all of them.
Yep, yep, and that's kind of what I'm interested in seeing is like how on top of just of who's winning the conference, just
Mhm.
period, but like how do those tiers look out? Because there's a couple of teams in this league where I'm like, if you guys can firmly establish yourself in the Big 12 as even if you're not in the top 4 as that a strong 5 or 6, I'm interested in what that looks like in terms of maybe projecting NCAA tournament wise or Big
Mhm.
12 tournament wise, the chaos, like any type of chaos that can kind of
Yeah.
cause there from one of those teams.
Well, and especially also when you get into like injuries and things like
Yeah.
that. Like I think that that's been a really big issue for Kansas, for
Mm,
example, where they are a different team with Julia Davis on the
Yeah.
floor. And they've been saying for several weeks now that their plan is to have her back for Big 12 play. And so I'm anticipating seeing her this weekend
Mhm.
against Iowa State. That's going to make a huge difference
Sure.
for them. But on the flip side of that, they're going to be without Reagan Williams for a while. And so you get one back just to lose
Yeah.
another as far as like your interior players go. Samaya Nichols is one of my favorite players in
Wow.
college basketball.
Mhm.
I love her game. I think that she is such a threat as not just a scoring option, but she has shown an ability and willingness to be a great distributor. It's just about getting her teammates into the right positions and
Yeah.
understanding where those opportunities are to distribute the
Mhm.
ball. And
Mhm.
that's where I think there's been some of the struggles is they've just been so young.
Sure.
And so that's really, really tough. But at their best, it's her stuffing the stat sheet, not just
Mhm.
scoring,
Mhm.
not just having to drive the ball to the rim on her own every single time. And so if they start getting healthier, that's going to be absolutely huge for them. And then my last kind of team that I am eyeing significantly here in the Big 12 conference season is West Virginia, because
Mhm.
I felt like coming into the season, they were severely underrated for what they added.
Mhm.
And they've had some hiccups for
Sure.
sure here in the non-conference, but I think that first of all, their style of play is just so difficult. Like the interesting thing about the Big 12, which gets discussed by anyone who covers the Big 12, so a small but mighty group,
Sure.
is that you don't have like a super specific league wide
Sure.
identity.
Yeah,
You have
100%.
probably the most diverse
Yeah,
group
especially with the
of
Pac-12 not
play
existing
styles.
anymore, because it was
Exactly.
kind of the Pac-12 I would
Yes.
give that to, and now I think that's
And now
become
you
the Big
absorb
12.
some of those
Yeah.
teams and then add to what already was in all kindness kind of a hodgepodge
Mhm.
of different
Mhm.
styles. And so West Virginia I think is a really difficult style to play against. They're
Mhm.
also a very difficult place to play, and based on my kind of numbers to start the season, I have them as the most favorable Big 12 schedule. And
Mm.
so just as far as who they face at home and where they have to go on the road, who they face multiple times, so I think that they are, I mean, they're not a dark horse
Yeah.
necessarily, but I think that they will finish in the top 4. I do,
Got you.
because
Yeah.
I think that just with the scheduling, and part of that also is going to be being healthy,
Mhm.
as is well documented.
Yeah.
I have a specific player archetype that I am very bought
Mhm.
in on, and that's a solid big. Jordan Thomas has been one of my favorite young players to watch. She's been out for several games now.
Mhm.
And so it's about figuring out what their adjustment is for that. But I'm sorry, if that's your starting 5 and then you also have Carter McRae,
Not too
you
shabby.
have Kira Wheeler,
Mhm.
I
Not
think you've
not
got
too
potential.
not too shabby. Not too
You've got more
shabby.
than potential even. And
Yeah.
shoot, let me also just throw in there Gia Cook. I said coming into this season, like people were gonna learn her name,
Mhm.
and they have to some degree. They will even more
Yeah.
in Big 12 play, because people forget like she started her career at Maryland. Like she had
Mhm.
a really
Mhm.
severe injury, worked her way back. She started looking like herself last year in this system.
Yeah. No, I'm with
I
it.
like it.
I like the West Virginia pick. Like, if someone was gonna crack the top 4, like, that's not
Mhm.
in that race right now, I I I I can get behind West Virginia
Mhm.
as that pick to be the team.
But we get to start this weekend. I'm so
I'm
excited.
ready. I'm excited.
I'm very here for it. I like personally, I also like Kansas is always like a tough team come conference play.
Mhm.
Like they just kind of turn it on, and they're a
Yeah.
team who will catch you by surprise. So it's not like, oh, I'd like to play Kansas because I think they're a pushover. I do like when we get to play Kansas because I'm friends with Morgan Page on their staff, and so I
Mhm.
get to see her. And so that's always a
There
fun
you
day. We get
go.
to
There
talk
you
books
go.
and catch up there. But oh, I love conference play. I love Big 12 play. I
Mhm.
also will say that like as someone who covers the league as a whole outside of Iowa State,
Mhm.
like hearing from national analysts and national broadcasters that yeah, the Big 12 is kind of different as far as like how open the coaches are with talking to people, and
Mhm.
like I experienced that, and I work like with a team specifically,
Yeah.
and
Right.
coaches talk
Right.
to me.
Mhm.
I think that's cool. So for people who maybe don't tap in as much to the Big 12, like if you want to like really
You
engage,
get
if
good
you really
insight.
want to learn about the
Mhm.
teams, about the players, about the coaches, like it's hard to go wrong.
Hard to go wrong. What a pitch! What a pitch for the Big 12 this weekend.
Look, I do what I can. I got my bias, but like, shoot, it gets reinforced for a reason.
There you go.
Like if nobody wants to talk to
It's
me
an
or if the basketball
bias.
sucks, like,
There you
like
go.
I'm not spending all my free time watching it because I feel like I have to.
I support your bias and your endeavors.
I
I
appreciate
support
that.
your agenda.
I can't support all of your agendas, but I
You know what? Fair enough. I can respect that. I can respect that. Is sometimes I gotta remind myself which ones are which. At this point, there's too many.
I don't know that I would have the same reaction if you were given an SEC pitch here, but you don't need me to. You don't need
more.
my co-sign on that.
I don't even need to make the pitch. You just know it means more. That's all. It's already known.
Oh God. All right. Well, that's what we got, folks. Make sure that you're following us on social media for whatever other pitches we're gonna give you. So that we can see who your personal bias leans you towards. I'm excited to heir what monumental mistakes I've made in projecting player archetypes for different fan bases. I'm sure I'll hear about it. So I guess if you're gonna do that, first of all, find Tyler DeLuca at Tyler DeLuca.
Whoa!
Complain about me and his mention.
Just know if there's anything that you disagree with Jamie on, I disagree too. I I support your bias instead.
My take on the 10-12 is always like I have opinions, but like I don't hold strongly to any of them. I will roll over on it.
I can always be provided new information.
I can be provided new information. I'm also just talking. Like I could change my mind tomorrow. Nothing I'm talking about is consequential enough to be mad about, in my opinion. If you're moved in that way, then that's on you because I'm not.
What a great way to end the show.
You take it with a grain of salt. It's on you for listening. But I guess if you gotta find me, if you got a strong opinion, I'm at JSteyz, JSTEYZ. But more importantly than all of that, you can find Her Hoop Stats at Her Hoop Stats on whatever social media platform you're on. Make sure you're subscribed to our show. The Her Hoop Stats podcast comes out every day during the week. We've also got a whole slew of writers, newsletters coming out. We've got opinions, but we've also got some really, really great numbers, some really great facts, and the site is awesome for that if you're trying to, like us, get a little bit more of a grasp on who these teams are, what we can come to expect. The projections, I think, are going to be really useful here getting into conference play. So make sure you're subscribed, tap in on that, and we will catch you next time here on the Her Hoop Stats podcast.